Okay, we are live. All right, guys, what's up? So I got two guests on the channel tonight. One you've seen before, right conservative, but then also controversial reality. He is in Tampa. Oh. What the hell's going on? I'm getting major feedback. All right, I think we're gonna have to start this over. Hold on. We'll be back, guys. I don't know what's going on, unless one of you guys know what's going on. All right. Oh, Google Hangouts. I'm not sure why I'm getting feedback now, but I'm closing out my windows on my laptop. Maybe that was it.
It's still live.
Oh, it's still live. I get that. I'm just closing out other windows to see.
I think
okay. Are we good now? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Controversial reality. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. This is where I, for whatever reason, I go through the struggles big time with these live streams, but that's neither here nor there. It'll come with time. All right, let's try that intro again without me echoing. All right, so guys, I got right conservative and controversial reality, two other YouTubers on Florida, up and coming. We're just going to talk about, the fallout from the midterm elections and, with the governor's race, the super, super close governor's race, and then we're going to get into like Trump 2020 and what these guys think. So go ahead and introduce yourself, guys, and plug your channels. Tell people where they can find you.
Well, hi, I'm the right conservative. I've been on here before, so some of you guys might already know me. Literally just go to YouTube, the right conservative, and I should be the first one that comes up. I just basically talk about politics. It's my game. That's why I'm on here. That's pretty much it. I don't have any other social media or anything like that. So.
Yeah, and all right. Well, I go by conservative or controversial reality. I've been doing videos for about 3-4 months ago. I started after my walkaway video, and I've been uploading ever since. And I've been. I'm not gonna say I was red pill. I think I was always conservative. I just did not knew it. And ever since Trump, I've been voting red. Yesterday, I voted red all the way, and you can find me on controversial reality and YouTube. That's all I got as well.
Cool. Okay, I have my thing on mute. All right, guys. Well, let's get right into it. Give me your thoughts. What was going through your head yesterday? What do you think about the governor's race? Just tell the people what your thoughts are on Florida almost electing a freaking socialist.
Yeah, that was crazy. So I was sitting there. So I actually went to the local Republican headquarters that we have in the city that I live in. And I was sitting there with the regional field director for District 6, which is up there, Volusia County, Flagler County, like Daytona Beach area. And I was sitting there, and everybody was going crazy when DeSantis is up. And we were sitting there going over the numbers, and we looked at each other, and I was like, this is going to be close. And he was like, it's going to be close. And so, because we had Fox News on, because, conservative outlet. And they were giving kind of like inaccurate numbers for how many of the results were in, but I guess it's different. I don't know. He explained it to me and I forgot. But I was on the New York Times because I guess they give accurate numbers. And, we were just going over the percentages. And because they called Michael Waltz, who was U.S. Congress for District 6, like really early. It was like 9 o'clock when they called him. And then, it ended at 11, like exactly 11, which was crazy. And it was close. It was like 1%. And I was like, wow. That's crazy that, it was like 1%. And I just thought that was wild. That's all I got. I honestly, for a second there, I thought Andrew Gillum was going to win for a second there. It's crazy.
Oh, for sure, man. It was way too close. It was just way too close for comfort. What did you think? CR. I'm just gonna call you CR for short. It's just easier.
All right, yeah, CR sounds good. Well, you know what? I almost didn't vote, and here's why. I always early vote, but I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna wait because it's gonna be exciting, to go the last day. And you know what? It turns out that unexpected things happen on the last minute. And I think I learned my lesson to always go in early vote as I have always done before. But this time, I was just looking at the stats. I think the governor race was only won by 0.6%. If we would have lost and I would have had voted, I would have never forgiven myself. So I think we have to go out there and vote. Honestly, I didn't expect this to be this close. I thought it was going to be a red wave in Florida, because everywhere I drive, at least in my area, I see nothing but a lot of patriots, a lot of American flags, a lot of Blue Lives Matter, a lot of signs that go red. So I honestly thought, you know what, we have it on the pocket. But I'm glad we do now. But there was that moment that I was like, okay, well, I voted like the last minute. I almost, probably for 5 minutes I wouldn't have voted, and obviously I went straight red. And I'm excited for 2020. I think 2020 is going to be a big thing.
Yeah, man. For me, I voted early. See, I wasn't sure. Like, there's something about going to vote on election day that just feels kind of traditional or whatever. But the day that Gillum video leaked, that Project Veritas video, that actually sent me to the polls early. I'm like, you know what? I have my day off today. I'm just gonna vote right now because I don't want to wait until the last minute and not be able to vote. I got to get this information out. It pretty much just energized me because I'm like, man, look at this fraud. Look at this corruption right here being exposed. And people still have overwhelming enthusiasm for this guy. And I'm like, what can I do to, first of all, get the information out? And then how can I go do my part right now to make sure he doesn't get elected? Like, I can't be the hypocrite who says, you guys need to go out and vote. You need to, do your research on Gillum, and then I miss out because I'm working late or something, or the polls close before I can get there. I just didn't want to deal with that. So I went down to downtown St. Pete, and I was a little nervous going there because I'm kind of superstitious because, I've heard things like George Soros buys machines and all this stuff, and there's corruption. And I took pictures of my paper ballot and everything. I'm like, man, my vote is going to count the way that it's supposed to count. So anyway, I cast my vote, and then I felt good after that. I was like, I did my part. It's not even in my hands anymore. All I can do is just make sure everyone else goes out to vote. And on the night of, like, I was so exhausted from work that I'm like, man, I know I'm going to go home and be like biting my nails, sitting on the edge of the couch, watching the coverage. And it felt literally like watching the Super Bowl. I feel like I was watching a back and forth, close football game. And I'm like, man, whoever gets the ball last is going to be the one to win. And when I got home, DeSantis was up like huge. And then I saw Gillum, it was like 11% ballots counted or whatever. And then Gillum came storming back and took the lead. And Gillum had the lead for probably like an hour. And it was starting to grow a little bit. I'm like, oh, man. Then I saw that I didn't realize that the Panhandle actually is in Central Time Zone. So their polls were open later. The Panhandle carried us to victory, guys, because they got an extra day for early voting, and their polls closed an hour later than the rest of the state.
Yeah, that's another thing, too, that we were looking at, because everybody was freaking out thinking that Gillum was going to win in the headquarters. And my buddy Sam, who's the regional director for District 6, was like, guys, we're fine. The Panhandle hasn't even voted yet. But then what happened was, so the Panhandle voted, and they don't have that many precincts in the Panhandle. So they all voted. They were all counted for really quickly because they don't have that many precincts. And then there was Miami. And then Miami's precincts were not accounted for yet. Like, all of them weren't accounted for yet. So that's when I started to get worried, because I was like, well, the Panhandle, they're already accounted for. But Miami, they had like, I don't know, like, I think 100 left in Miami-Dade. And then, what is it, Broward? And then the one above that, I can't remember. It starts with a P.
St. Lucie or something. I don't know.
No, it starts with a P. I can't remember. But they each had like 100 precincts left to count, and I was like, oh god, like it's gonna flip blue. But I don't even know. I think what happened was because when Gillum conceded or formally quit or whatever, I hate because conceded. Rabbit trail. I'll stop. So when he conceded, I was like, thank God, because if he hadn't have done that, I think that the precincts would have all been accounted for, and it either would have been super close to where it would be like the point of a recount, or Gillum would take the lead and win, because all the precincts weren't accounted for when he conceded. So I was like, well, I'm glad he did that, and now they got to recount Scott. And freaking Nelson just doesn't want to give up. But no, it's actually Florida state law, because it was under, I think, it's either under 1% or under 0.5% that they have to recount, according to Florida state law. And so that's what they're doing now. And I really hope that Rick Scott takes it, because Rick Scott only won by 34,000 votes, which is like nothing compared to 8.3 million. So I was like, wow, 34,000, that's like nothing. So I really hope he wins, you know, because like you said on your channel, Rick Scott isn't the perfect candidate. I think that was you. He's not the perfect candidate, but he's a heck of a lot better than Bill Nelson. So that's what I got to say on that.
CR?
Yeah, just a little bit you mentioned about the Project Veritas video. You know what? I watched that and I was disgusted about what was going on, because they're obviously trying to play the race card. You know, talking about what is it? Florida's a cracker state and this and that. You know what? That's just a bunch of bull crap. You know, I took offensive because I've been in Florida for about 20 years. For those of you guys that don't know me, I was actually born in Mexico. So that's like, hey, you know, you're supposed to be like 100% liberal because you're Mexican, like born in Mexico. And, you know, obviously I'm brown, I'm a minority, this and that. But you know what, like that's just a bunch of BS. And I took offense to that because Florida is very diverse. It's very diverse. And as we can see, with all this diversity, we win red. Okay, so I took, you know, I took that to heart. I knew I wasn't going to vote for Gillum, obviously. Especially probably about 3 weeks ago, I went through his webpage and it said something about, we got to keep Obama's legacy alive. I'm like, seriously, is this what you're running on? Like, I want nothing to do with Obama and what he did. Overall, I think he was a crappy president. And I just don't like what Obama did for this country. And thank God, you know, I think things are turning slowly around. But you guys were mentioning about the Senate. You know, I think it's important to know, I was just watching and looking at the numbers about 20 minutes ago. Scott is only up by 0.4% of the votes. That's less than 0.5% of the votes. Okay, that's very minimum. And again, I voted at the last minute, and I'm happy I did. But if we would have lost, I would have never forgotten myself.
Yeah, it's so. Wait a minute. So Bill Nelson, because here's what's weird, right? Because they didn't actually call the Scott Nelson race. I mean, some outlets did. That's the thing. There's no consistency with outlets. Some were calling, all right, Scott's going to win. And then some said, oh, it's too close to call. And then the next thing I know, he's like giving his speech as if he won. And then I'm like, okay, so did he win or not win? Because he's out there and everyone's applauding and popping champagne. I'm like, and they're chanting Senator Scott. So I was really confused. So I went to bed thinking like, okay, he won, even though they haven't counted all the votes. He gave his speech. Then I woke up this morning and I'm like reading that Bill Nelson wanted a recount. So I'm wondering what that recount is going to consist of. Like, what does he think is missing? Because I was talking to RNC Sarasota, who I had on my channel a couple weeks ago, and she was saying that usually when they do recounts like this, they end up finding a lot of voter fraud, and it ends up working out in the Republicans' favor. So that would probably help Scott secure the victory. I thought that even within like the margin of error, there weren't enough votes left for Nelson to have a chance. So that's really confusing. With me watching my first midterms, it's all really confusing. And then also it's like, well, if the Republicans already have a majority in the Senate, obviously we'd love to have an extra seat. But if Nelson somehow does beat Scott, how much does that affect Florida? How much does that affect Trump and that kind of thing? That's what still remains to be answered for me.
Sorry, I'm trying to see if Scott.
You're good. I just wanted to get that out because, I guess the drama continues. I'm just happy that DeSantis won because to me that was more important than the Senate race. The Senate is what it is. They vote, with their majority or minority, whatever. But the governor's race down here was so important for all the reasons that I've mentioned in several videos, including but not limited to the 3 justice picks that DeSantis will now have. So he'll be able to reshape the court with a conservative majority to protect the Second Amendment and the First Amendment and everything else and make sure that we, enforce the rule of law. So just think like, man, if Gillum had won all of that, we would be a sanctuary state. He would repeal voter ID laws. He would make sure that the demographics shift for 2020 and make it that much harder for Trump. So I'm just really grateful. I would say like the biggest shock for me was that Gillum won Pinellas County. CR, don't you live in Hillsborough, right? I believe. Oh, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Yeah, here I am. Okay, yeah, I actually work in Hillsborough. I lived in Hillsborough all my life until about 2 years ago, and now I work in Polk County, which is they're neighboring. But I'm gonna try to share this screen because I'm on my laptop. I think I should be able to do it, where I can show you guys what the polls currently are. Let me see if it works.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. Okay, I know it's kind of small, so now I can't even see it anymore. But anyways, it's 0.4 away. Oh, there it goes. It's 0.4 away only. So it is not very much. I really don't know what that means, but bottom line, I think it was a close coin. And it's 99% called. So there's still that 1%, but let's just pray to God in this case that it goes red all the way and we get Scott in there.
Yeah, that's so shady to me. I don't get what's taking so long. If it's 99% counted, it makes me think there's something going on that we don't know about. Something going on there, man. But anyway, let's move on from that. So I kind of want to talk about what do you guys think about how the election played out statewide? Obviously, like I said, I'm in Pinellas County, which went, I believe, I got to look at the numbers again, but I believe it went super red for Trump. Like he crushed Hillary in this county, but then it turned around and went blue for Gillum, which to me, that's kind of strange because it's like, how could you vote for Trump in 2016 and then Trump's pick for governor runs in 2018 for governor and then you go for his opponent, which is a socialist, like as far left as you can go. He was the most, I think by far, Andrew Gillum was as far left as any candidate in midterms. And so for this county to flip blue, it makes me wonder, was it illegals? Was there a demographic shift? Or was there like voter fraud? But that's something I really want to get to the bottom of before 2020. So we're not dealing with this in 2020. I'd prefer it be like Trump crushes it in Florida because I think he could if he's running up against like a Beto or Rourke, or somebody that's just not going to resonate, like basically someone who's black or Hispanic, because that's really what I think helped surge Gillum is the identity politics. So I'm wondering, what do you guys think about that?
About almost electing a socialist, right?
Yeah, and just like how close it was for Florida to be such a low tax state, and it's always leaned Republican, even though it's a purple state. It is in the South. It's a Republican, gun-toting, small government state for the most part. You do have a lot of liberals from up north, but more people would see Florida as a Republican-leaning state. It definitely wouldn't be a state that you would expect to elect a socialist.
You guys know the red elephants, right? And he always talks about, well, I hope you guys know him, and he always talks about like the demographic shift and stuff. So I think a lot of it has to do with the demographic shift, because I know if you go down to South Florida, it's like Hispanic all the way. Central Florida is more like mixed, and then like North Florida is all white. So really, honestly, it's the white people who are kind of, because most Hispanics and blacks don't vote Republican. All right, it's just a fact. And so I think the whites in the North are kind of keeping the Republicans going in Florida. So, but that'll fade out eventually, because the Democrats want all this mass migration and whatnot to come to the U.S. And I think they're deliberately doing this just so that they can stay in power, because it's all about power. It's all about power, and it's all about money. So they're trying to push this whole mass immigration thing, and they try to pull at people's emotions to kind of keep themselves in power, because they know that it's white people mostly who are keeping the Republicans in power, and they don't like that. So the demographic shift, and I think a lot, like you said, it has to do with people coming, a lot of liberals coming from the North down to Florida, and then some of them could be socialist, and they want a lot of it. I think it has to do with education too, and experience, because I've listened to people who have come from when Fidel Castro was in Cuba, and they say, why are you guys complaining? You guys have the best economic system. Like, I was listening to this one guy who came from Cuba, who lived there during Fidel Castro, and he was like, I came to America, and within 3 years I was a millionaire, because I came up with a business and I made all this money, because you take advantage of the economic system, which isn't a bad thing always. So he was like, yeah, and communism, and he was a communist, back in the day, because he didn't know no better. So I think a lot of it has to do with not being educated on what socialism actually is and what capitalism actually is, and inexperience with being in a fully socialist country. Yeah, those two things.
CR.
Yeah, I see what you guys are doing, and I think demographics certainly makes a big point, like you guys were just talking about. I'm gonna try to see if I can share screen this map so our friends can see what Florida looks like as of now. And then, because it's very similar to the country, in my opinion, because we can see here on these blue parts, these are the most populous states, parts of the state. Like, here's Tampa Bay area, and then we obviously have Miami-Dade, Orlando. And I think that it is very similar to what happens in the country, because in the most popular areas is when they turn blue. Okay, so I think we have two coasts here. Basically Tampa area and the Miami-Dade. Yes, like in the country, we have the East Coast and the West Coast, and that's what happens, in my opinion. Because let me see if I can go back to myself. Because demographics change, but then we also have to think about that. I think it was 29% of Hispanics voted for Trump. Okay, but it goes with what you guys were talking about, that a lot of them are not educated on what's happening with socialism. I think I did about 2 videos about what's happening in Venezuela, but then the media is not talking about Venezuela, because it's not good for them. It's not good for their ratings, because it's not good for their movement. Because the more left they go, the more socialists they're going to go, and they obviously don't want to talk about Venezuela, because that's going to go against what they're talking about. But a lot of it has to do with what we're doing, making videos. I think a lot of people are tuning in, just like right conservative was saying about the red elephant. He's out there a lot, and what we're doing, and demographics do help a lot to the left primarily. But then I think that being Hispanic myself, I'm interested to see the amount of Hispanics that voted to the right in this case.
Yeah, no, when you talk about like what the Red Elephant says on his channel, that's so true. What the Democrats are doing, like it should be really obvious, even to people who are still going to vote Democrat. It should be very obvious what they're doing. It's social engineering at its finest. They're shifting the demographics. They know that if that caravan gets here, they know that they can get those people into sanctuary cities that are placed all over the country. They have strategic locations. Like I believe there's sanctuary cities in like the middle of Kansas. And now if you can flip a state like Kansas, that's a Republican stronghold, there you go. I don't know how many electoral votes they have, but they're going to go for that. And that's why I think midterms were so important in terms of like the congressional seats and stuff, because you know if you're a Democrat representing those cities and those areas, you can have sanctuary cities, and that's basically going to be blue. Every sanctuary city is a blue city. Like there's no such thing as, I don't believe, as a Republican-run sanctuary area. So yeah, with the demographics and people coming over here that don't share American values. I don't know how much time you spent in Mexico, but I know that like other Latin countries, they don't know anything other than like the government provides everything. You know, shelter, food, water, you know, healthcare, all that stuff, and so they wouldn't know any better than to, you know, vote for the same thing here, thinking like, well, the United States does it right. It's better here. You know, this is the best way to do it. Whereas most Americans, I don't think you can get a single American to say like, hey, if you could construct America in your image, would the government be even involved, or would you have your own land, your own property, your own food supply, abundance of whatever, food, water, shelter, guns? You would have your own thing. You wouldn't be like, if I could construct America, I would have a government that would take taxes from me and, you know, redistribute my money and tell me where I can park and make me pay to go fishing. Nobody would say that, right? So American values are like based in freedom. Like it's all in our Constitution. So even the most like leftists here, they don't realize that they're the frog in the pot that's boiling, and it's going to be too late before they recognize it. And it's not just with, you know, demographics the way the Red Elephants talks about. It's with people leaving, whites, blacks, Hispanics, everyone leaving other places like California. They're voting for the same policies that made them leave. So it's almost like those people should know better. Obviously, we can educate people who think that they have to vote Democrat and, you know, get them to kind of see the differences between Democrat policies, Republican policies. But I don't know how we get through to people who are voting for stuff that they fled, that are already here in the U.S. They're doing the same thing that the migrants are doing when they're coming up. It doesn't make any sense. And without, you know, the proper education on how socialism truly is, they're going to embrace it. I have no idea why college campuses, they don't talk about socialism the way that they should talk about it. And I think that's why Cubans in America they vote Republican, because they've lived through communism. I believe it was communism under Castro. I don't think it was socialism. It's socialism now, I guess. But back in the day, it was like communism. And so because of that, they fled. They're in Florida, and they're like, no way I'm giving the government any more power. So at least like Cubans here, for the most part, got it. But it's the rest of them, man. I don't really know. We have to. That's what I wanted to try to brainstorm about, is how can we educate. I mean, we have our channels. That's awesome. I love that we're able to spread the word. And I do believe in this grassroots movement of YouTubers. That's how you have these movements like Lexit, Blexit, Walk Away. Those are all grassroots movements. There's no George Soros money. We don't have big sponsors and financiers. This is just a bunch of people connecting and starting movements, and it's growing. I just think we need to start it at a more micro level and try to get it here in Florida, because the way that election played out yesterday was pretty freaking scary.
Yeah, I think with the migrant caravan, how you were saying, it should be obvious even for people who vote Democrat. I don't think it's that obvious to people who vote Democrat, because Democrat politicians like to paint it like, oh, they're coming, they're seeking asylum, like they want to get away from their oppressive state, and they are oppressive. They're you know, countries, Central America, whatnot, you know, they are. And and maybe some of them are trying to come here and seek asylum. But the thing is, a very I'd say in regards with the caravan, it's not as many as the Democrats try to paint it to be. I think a lot of them just want to come to the U.S. because you see them, like, you know, waving whatever, I think, what flag was it? The Honduran flag or whatever. And it's like, if you're fleeing an oppressive state, why are you embracing the country's flag? I don't understand. You should be waving the American flag, if anything. So I think to the average Democrat who votes Democrat, I don't think it's that obvious to them, because Democrats who they listen to likes to paint them as these, like Obama said. You guys remember Obama said, malnourished, what was it? What did he say? Malnourished, like they don't have a lot of money or something like that. I don't know if you guys remember Obama saying that, but he was like, whoa, why are Republicans scared of these malnourished, blah, blah, blah people? When no, in reality, they're throwing rocks at you know, I think you guys saw the video. They throw rocks at like the helicopter, the army guy in the helicopter, gave him permanent brain damage, I think. I haven't seen the video, but I've heard about it. And I've seen the video, you know, Millennial Millie posted the video where they were like tearing down whatever wall it was. I don't know where, maybe somewhere in Mexico. And they were throwing rocks at whoever, you know, obviously they didn't like him. And no, these people aren't these poor, malnourished people. These people are, you know, like Trump says, it's an invasion. They're trying to come here when it's like, no, you can't just come here. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we say there's a process. You know, people come through the process, and it is long and it is tedious. But I think if you really wanted to be an American citizen, you would go through the process. You would try. Well, I mean, you would try and you would succeed with going through the process and becoming like a full, you know, American citizen. In regards to the sanctuary cities, they're just stupid. Why? Why do you have a sanctuary city? I don't know if you guys remember, but I think it was lawyers or attorneys of 6 of the Hungarian people who were in the caravan sued the Trump administration for violating their constitutional rights. Like, they don't have constitutional rights. They're not American. I don't understand. How can they have constitutional rights if they're not American? I think they tried to say that, like, oh, you know, in the Constitution, I don't know, some loophole they tried to come up with. But it's like, I mean, I think to the average American, it's like, you don't have constitutional rights unless you're an American. You know what I mean? I forget the last thing you said, but I was gonna touch on that a little bit too, but I can't remember the last thing you said. But yeah, the sanctuary cities, like, you know, sanctuary cities harbor illegal aliens. All right, we know this. That's why they're sanctuary cities. And I believe that that's unconstitutional. First of all, I don't know why the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on that yet, because we know it's happening. I think I don't think LA is one, but I think San Francisco is a sanctuary city, or San Diego, somewhere in California. It's always in California because, you know, Californians always vote in Democrats because those are the only people who run in California, and I don't understand why. And when a Republican runs, they always get they always get knocked out. But it's just like that thing with the whole violating their constitutional rights. I was like, what constitutional rights? I don't understand. So
yeah, that's ridiculous. What? That's insane. I saw a video also that they were burning the American flag. And I made a joke in my head. I should have tweeted it. It would have probably got a lot of retweets. I'm like, oh, look at them already exercising their First Amendment right, disrespecting our flag, right? And they're not even here in the country yet. It's like Trump was absolutely right to call it an invasion, because they're marching towards our border, hoisting their flag. Most of them look well-dressed. They were all men. I didn't see many like children or women. They were well-dressed. And if they had been marching through the deserts of Central America and then all the way through Mexico, wouldn't their clothes be tattered, torn? Wouldn't they look tired? You know, some of the videos that I saw, people were smiling and waving. I'm like, that doesn't look like you're fleeing tyranny and coming towards that doesn't look like you're seeking asylum. That looks like this was, orchestrated for you to get here, and you're just along for the optics. Like, let me wave and smile for the pictures, because I mean, unless those pictures are fake, which I don't think they are, Trump is absolutely right to call it an invasion, and the media tries to smack him down for it, but he comes right back. He's like, it is an invasion. That's why we have such a great president, because he's not going to be bullied into the PC dogma of saying like, oh no, they're just migrant asylum seekers. Like, no, these are illegal alien invaders that are coming to our border, and they think that we owe them something. We owe them constitutional rights. We owe them housing, healthcare, whatever else it is. And guess what? California is pretty much a magnet for it. California is like, yes, please come to California. They're pretty much holding up a sign saying, come here, everything's going to be free. You can even run for office. Everything's free. You don't have to work. And it's just pathetic. I feel like California should just secede from the union, become its own country. It's big enough. I don't know. I could ramble on about that. What do you guys got? I don't want to take up too much time talking.
Yeah, about the caravan, it's interesting because, again, I speak Spanish, and I was reading a lot of articles from Mexico and from Honduras, and it's different to what they're saying here in the United States. Let me just give you some examples. Mexico sent 500 federal police officers to the border with Guatemala to stop them. And what did this caravan do? They stoned them. I think one police officer was injured. And obviously, people from Southern California, and I think this agency called something about No Borders from I think like Phoenix, Arizona, they send their people to protect immigrants, right, with their cameras. And of course, the Mexican, they wanted to not appear bad for the optics. So the Mexican police had to stand back and let them in. They broke the fence. And some of the stories that I read coming from Honduran news sources, again, totally different, that in the United States, they did not mention that there were about 30 pregnant girls coming in. Why do you think there were 30 pregnant girls? One of them happened to be born in Mexico, or one of the babies ended up being born in the way to Mexico. And guess what? That person does not get birthright citizenship in Mexico, because Mexico does not have birthright citizenship. So this Honduran baby or Guatemalan baby or whatever it is not Mexican. Yet it was born in Mexico. But the other 29 girls that are pregnant, if they make it to the United States, their babies are going to get birthright citizenship as of now. That could change. I remember another news story that I read. This was from a Mexican newspaper. It was about how it was Mexico's fault if something happened to the migrants, because Mexico didn't provide 30 brand new buses for the migrants, because they requested the buses, and apparently they had already agreed to a yes, they're going to bus them all the way to the border. But at the end of the day, pressure from the U.S., they didn't get the buses, so the migrants had to reroute through a different. They basically had to reroute through dangerous territory. Therefore, if something happened to them, it was Mexico's fault. If something happened to the immigrants, because they didn't get the buses. And again, the pregnant girls, and they interviewed this one guy. I think this was from a Mexican newspaper again, and it was this guy that was going on not on a wheelchair, but on those sticks. I lost the word, but he couldn't walk. There was something wrong with his legs, and all he wanted was to come to the United States to get surgery. And I'm thinking, dude, there are veterans here who are waiting in line for surgery. Who said you just get to cross the border and get surgery? I mean, we're paying taxes. I'm paying taxes. You guys are paying taxes. Okay? And I'm saying this, again, I was born in Mexico, and guess what? I don't like it when 20% gets taken out of my paycheck for taxes, and then I have to go to the store and pay another 7% on taxes. That's what, 20 to 30% taxes that it's straight going to another person. I mean, that's just what I don't like, and I can say it. As a Mexican, build the wall, because we got to take care of our citizens first. I have kids myself, and I want their best life for them, and I want my tax dollars to go to them and to their schools. And it all comes with being a conservative. You got to be responsible for your own self. If you want surgery, guess what? Get healthcare, pay for your own surgery. If you chose to have babies, take care of your babies. Okay, and but I don't know. I don't know. Let me just not go on because I'll go on forever.
Amen. Amen. I couldn't have said that any better myself. Like, America first. That is the mantra. That is all that Trump is really saying. That's all he's ever been saying. But they're smearing him day in, day out. You're racist, blah, blah, blah. Who in their right mind would not want a wall built? I mean, you have all these people on the left that have their hearts just bleeding out for these migrants. They're just crossing the desert seeking a better life. I'm like, yeah, but we have incentives for them to put their lives in danger to get here. We have to close some of those loopholes, like what you just said, with pregnant women crossing the desert. I'm pretty sure that's not safe. That's not healthy. That's not good for the mother. That's not good for the baby, certainly. So why is she doing it? Could it be because of our birthright citizenship and the 14th Amendment? I mean, if we close that loophole, then she's probably going to be like, well, maybe I'll have the baby first and try to come in legally or whatever, you know. But I guess ABL was talking about this. He said China is actually the one that abuses it the most. I forget what they call it. It's like something vacation where you come on vacation when you're like about to go in labor and then have the baby in the United States. Then it's a dual citizen, or it can go back to, like, you have the baby here, go back to China. The child stays there until they're 18, and then they can come back and get education here and everything else because they were born in the United States. So China takes advantage of that loophole as well. It's just other countries. Anyone in the world can take advantage of that birthright citizenship. It's not just migrants coming up from south of the border. And that's what I think a lot of people forget. And then, of course, there's everything else. You know, there's the gangs, the coyotes, the drug trafficking, the sex like the child trafficking, all these horrible things that go along with not simply having a physical barrier on the southern border. There's nothing more common sense than that. You know, in terms of slowing the illegal immigration, you have to close those loopholes. You have to get rid of those incentives. We have to do something about California, because California is acting as a magnet to bring people up, because California is saying, come run into our arms. We'll take care of you. It makes no sense. No other border state is even talking about that. Certainly not Texas and Arizona. New Mexico's the other one. But California's like, come here. They're pretty much like, they're like they're like that company that has big signs like blowout sale, come in, everything's half off. That's California. But, you know, the other really obvious thing is, you know, Americans first. Like, how many, you said it, veterans that can't get surgery, they're dying on VA hospital floors, and, you know, the state of our inner cities is so messed up, and they're just trying to they're trying to juggle too many things. It's not like what the liberal believes in is so bad and wrong. It's just, shouldn't you want to take care of the problems we have here first before we can help anyone else? I said I gave like the perfect analogy is like, if you're on a plane that's about to crash, you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you help someone else. It's pretty simple. Take care of our country before we worry about someone else. So let me use this to kind of segue into the final thing, and then we'll wrap up. Because I honestly, guys, I need a little bit of a break from politics. Not too long. Subscribers will kill me if I don't post at least once a week. But after all the midterm stuff, I need at least like 2-3 days to just tune out, watch some normal TV, and just chill. But with the illegal immigration, this is going to be, and it was leading into midterms, the most hot button issue. Democrats try to make it seem like healthcare is the number one issue. It's really not. It's the illegal immigration. And, you know, Trump is hammering that home. So now that the Democrats have taken control of the House, I think Trump he's scheming up a way to force their hand to negotiate with him. And I think he might have to, like, sign DACA or something like that. He might have to give them DACA for closing, like, the diversity visa lottery. What's the other one? Diversity visa lottery. chain migration, and then catch and release. And then, of course, like the birthright citizenship, that will take a lot more work to do. But what do you got? What are your thoughts now that the Democrats have the House? Do you think they're going to obstruct and investigate for 2 years? Apparently, they said they want to work with Republicans. Do you believe that? And how does that play into immigration and everything else?
So I actually have, well, since you said that, now I have 4 things that that you were talking about that I want to say or talk about. So first, I guess I'll talk about the House and the Senate. So I actually watched the Red Elephants for quite some time, a lot, I guess you want to say. He's a little more right-leaning than most of us, but you know, he's not alt-right, so that's good. But with the House and the Senate, I don't know if you guys saw, I think it was one of his most recent videos, he actually predicts that for the next 2 years, because Democrats control the House, Republicans control the Senate. So for the next 2 years, he predicts that there's going to be a huge gridlock and a lot of government shutdowns. And he said the only way governments can, or the only way that Republicans can remain in power is through Trump's executive orders. But see, the problem with that is Trump's executive orders are only good for Trump's term. The president after Trump can overturn those. Now, if the president after Trump doesn't overturn those, then it's fine. Then it stays as a law. But yeah, so he says there's going to be a lot of gridlock. There's going to be a lot of government shutdowns because Democrats control the House, Republicans control the Senate. And the only way really that Republicans can do stuff is through Trump's executive orders, which are really only good for his term because historically, for the past, I think since H.W. Bush, it's been going Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. So I would think going off that trend, the next president is going to be Democrat. So obviously, if the next president is going to be Democrat, he's going to reverse everything that Trump did, just like Trump reversed everything Obama did. So with that, in regards to the flag burning that the Honduran, the caravan was doing, I actually saw that it was actually a Trump flag they were burning, not so much an American flag. I could be wrong on that, but I'm sure they burned an American flag somewhere in the caravan. But from what I saw, it was actually a Trump flag, not an American flag, but I could be wrong. Also, I was writing notes while you were talking. Also, it's funny because so the Democrats are saying, oh, these people in the caravan are seeking asylum and they want, you know, they're malnourished, like Obama said, and they want food and water and just stuff to get them back on their feet, you know. Well, what people don't know, or at least the average Democrat doesn't know, is that Mexico actually wanted to provide this caravan with food, water, and housing, and most of the people in the caravan refused that from Mexico. So it's like, if they're really seeking asylum and shelter and food and water, why would they refuse that from Mexico? I don't understand that. And then the 14th Amendment was actually designed for slaves, newly freed slaves, and former CSA agents, CSA citizens. CSA meaning Confederate States of America. Because, you know, after the Civil War was over, the Confederate States of America joined back the Union, but the people who were former CSA citizens were not USA citizens. So they kind of created the 14th Amendment, one for newly freed slaves, and secondly for the citizens of, well, the old citizens of the Confederate States of America. So that's really why the 14th Amendment was actually written, because, you know, it was written, what, 1866, I think. And back then, America wasn't a global superpower. In fact, we didn't become a global superpower, I think, until after World War I. So, you know, after the Civil War, we were just kind of a country that was like every other country. And we didn't have a lot of illegal immigration because, like I said, we weren't a global superpower. We didn't have like a lot of infrastructure that we do nowadays. So, you know, we didn't really have the problem of illegal immigration. But see, the problem is the 14th Amendment has been kept the same. And now Trump wants to change it because he realized that, oh, they come here, you know, they have kids. But see, the part that people are fighting over is the part where it says, and the jurisdiction thereof, because people are asking, what does the U.S. have jurisdiction over? Well, we don't have jurisdiction over illegal immigrants, so why should we have jurisdiction over their kids? You know what I mean? If they're born to illegal aliens. Now, if they're born to at least one U.S. citizen, I believe that the kid becomes a U.S. citizen because, you know, a U.S. citizen birthed them, or that's their parent. You get what I mean? So that, and another thing with California, sorry, I talk a lot. Another thing with California is that California doesn't realize, it's so funny because we see what's happening in Europe where they're accepting, and now I know Hispanics and Arabs are different, but the illegal immigration problem is the same. So all these Arabs are coming from, you know, the Middle East to Europe, and I think Germany actually changed their immigration laws, or they're fighting to. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. But a lot of Arabs went to Germany and England and France, and Europe has really gone downhill ever since they started doing that. And I think what California doesn't realize is that if California keeps going on this path of accepting all these illegals, not realizing that, yeah, there are a lot of illegals that don't want the best for America, and they just want to kind of take advantage of the system, it's going to turn into Europe. You know what I mean? And it's just like, what are you doing? Honestly, to me. So those are all my thoughts. I know I talk a lot, so I'll let you guys talk.
Go ahead, RC.
Yeah, as far as it goes, as far as it goes about the Senate, I think that the Democrats are not going to be able to do much because we control the House, they control the Senate. But luckily, in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons why people like Trump is because of the court, you know, the Supreme Court. And as we know, that is based on the Senate. We have two. Am I on? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. You know, as we know, we already have two nominees from Trump that have been already set through. And I think that's my biggest takeaway personally, because these judges are going to serve a lifetime. I think both of them are 51 and 54, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully they're there for another 30 years or more. And Trump may get another pick. So with that being said, that I'm happy that that the Republicans have the Senate. As far as the Democrats have in the House, I think they're already talking about articles for impeachment. It's just they're few with Trump hate because there's a lot of divisions between the Democrats, a lot of immigration because not all of them agree with the caravan. As a matter of fact, 2 days ago, I was watching a town hall from CNN, and some of them were saying how I think they asked how many of them agreed with the caravan, and only one out of about 30 persons, half of them being Republicans and the other half being Democrats, and only one of them agreed with the caravan. So the only thing that unites the Democrats right now is the hate for Trump. With that being said, I don't think they're going to go anywhere because they're going to be pulling their own ways. And Right Conservative was talking about how there's a cycle of Democrat, Republican president, and so on and so forth. But I'm really hoping 2020 stays red. You know, my guy is Pence. I know anything can happen, but certainly that's one guy that I would go for. And he's certainly right about talking about the migrant caravan because Mexico did offer asylum. If you guys did not know, Mexico just elected a lefty president. He's going to be taken over, if I remember correctly, December the 1st. And he's already said he's going to allow them in. He's going to allow Central Americans to go right in through Mexico. And he's going to give them asylum. Of course, these Central American immigrants, they're going to come into Mexico seeking asylum. But once they're in Mexico, they're going to continue up north, for the most part, to go to come to the United States. And those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think I think the UN defines asylum seeking as going to the very next country that borders your own. And to me, that makes perfect sense. It's like if you're running away from a bear and there are 3 cars lined up, you're going to jump in the first car, not the third one, because you're seeking refuge. And, you know, if they're going past, obviously, it's not just about seeking refuge. But, yeah, I'll just wrap up and say, like, yeah, I really think overall, I'm happy that it wasn't a blue wave, but I'm also not happy that it wasn't a red wave. So it's kind of like it feels like 2 teams tying in a game. It's like we played awesome, but we didn't win. We didn't lose, but we didn't win. And I guess you could say we kind of did win because, you know, historically presidents get slaughtered in midterms if it's an off-cycle election. And so that's good. We picked up seats. I really think Trump, art of the deal, man. I really think he is going to expose the Democrats like we've never seen before, and we're going to see a true red wave in 2020. Because the Democrats are such obstructionists, I don't buy for 1 second that they plan to work with Republicans. I think they're going to obstruct and filibuster and try to block and try to slow down everything he's doing. They're going to open up endless investigations, and they're just going to throw as much mud as they can at Trump to try to take him down. And they have the worst people representing their party: Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. They're still there. They all got reelected. So, I mean, they're going to be right there. So I think Trump will use that to his advantage. He knows how to play them and the media. And I think he can force their hand on this immigration thing. That's the one thing, is the wall not being built between now and 2020 that's huge. And I guess Trump supporters we have to accept the fact that we didn't keep the House. So if we had kept the House, we could be getting the wall built right now. You know, so we have troops on the border. That's good, but the Democrats are probably just trying to flood in as many people as they can before 2020. And I'm happy about, Trump being able to pick another SCOTUS. I guess there's a couple that are getting up there in age, and at least 1, if not 2, should retire between now and the time he finishes his second term. I would love it if it happened sooner than later so we could just get them in, get them confirmed, because the Senate majority will take care of it and be fine. We don't have to worry about Democrats obstructing. Let's get some more on there and call it good. But yeah, I guess we'll wrap up, guys. Thank you for coming on the channel. I'm glad that we're all here in Florida. We're going to keep – this is the start of something new. We're going to of course, if you guys are interested, I don't want to force you into it, but it would be nice if we built a little coalition of YouTubers, you know, social media down here, and we stay connected, because we're all kind of strategically in different parts of the state, and we could probably even find other people, and we can get the information out. You know, as we get closer to midterms, or not midterms, get closer to 2020, Trump's going to start campaigning down here. It'd be nice to start getting out, educating people, talking to people like, hey, man, are you happy with the way that your neighborhood looks? You know, just kind of that kind of stuff. So hopefully you guys are interested in that. Maybe like once a month or something. I don't know. We'll figure something out, but we should definitely stay connected.
Yeah, I'm certainly interested. You know, if we can schedule something, like you said, once a month or so, every other week, or whenever, you know, whenever something big happens, we can just give our opinion. And I think it's great that like you're saying, we're located different areas in the state, and we also come from diverse background, right? Something that the left always talks about, diversity. Well, here we are, right? So
diversity is our strength. Black, white, and Mexican.
Right.
Intellectual diversity. All right, RC, you got any final words for the people?
Well, if you guys, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, vote red, yeah.
Oh yeah, you know, again, you know, thanks, Mike, for having me on your show, and Right Conservative likewise. And if you guys want to follow me, I am Controversial Reality YouTube, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I'm CR, but backwards, so RC, Right Conservative. You can literally just look up The Right Conservative, and I'm there. I'm the dude with the eagle as his avatar, even though I'm actually more libertarian. But libertarian, conservative, is there really a difference?
I think there is. That's another conversation. But yeah, guys, thanks for coming on the channel. Thank you guys for this is a lower view count, but hey, we got 33 people watching. We peaked at around 50. If you guys are watching right now, please like it. Like the video. Also, subscribe to Right Conservative and Controversial Reality. I put the links to their channels in the chat. I'm also going to put it in the description of the video. Thank you guys for coming on. I'm going to end the broadcast here. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to click stop broadcast here. All right.